Hi there, and welcome to my Morgana guide to the mid lane and support lane. Now, in mind when you're in laning phase, if you're hitting that cannon minion with any kind of damage, you're going to be healing a bit off of it. Also, when you're doing all-in trades with your opposing laner, it sometimes is a good idea to let them do their combo, of course, with your Black Shield up, and then throw out your combo so you're sustaining back up their damage that they did to you and leaving them without any abilities and just with auto attacks to deal damage with you, so that it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to burst you out through your sustain. So just keep that in mind. The other way to approach trading with Soul Siphon is using the extremely long range of your Q and W in laning to just get a little bit of heal back and try and not take any trade damage back. Alright, and next moving on to Morgana's Q, probably the most infuriating ability for the opponent players. Dark Binding, Morgana releases a sphere of dark magic upon contact with an enemy unit. The sphere will deal magical damage and force the unit to the ground for a period of time. Now, this is a little bit of a harder ability to land. You always want to keep in account, especially if you're playing this in support, to try and get as close as possible and try and delay using this ability for as long as possible, making them juke back and forth instead of moving just straight back towards their turret, letting you close the distance on them and making it harder for them to dodge the Q. And when you're above silver elo, usually people are always looking to dodge that Morgana Q, as it's a really prevalent and impactful spell that people are always watching out for it. Alright, and now on to her W, Tormented Soil. Infects an area with desecrated soil, causing enemy units who stand on the location to take continual damage. This is a really good ability for Morgana if you're taking her into the solo lanes. It helps you control a lot of the lane and how you're playing it. It is definitely, depending on your playstyle, you can max it second, or I mean even first if it's just a farm fest and you just want to secure all your minions. But playing in support, you usually want to be maxing this ability last, unless you're getting a lot of resources, you're just getting all the kills, your ADC isn't really last hitting any of them, and you happen to be picking up a little bit more gold. Sometimes it to get a little bit more offensive items, this does scale pretty well with AP items. And onto Black Shield for Morgana, one of just a huge utility spell for any person who put it on. Especially important to always put this on your carry, whether it be an ADC that's doing well or a really strong fed jungler like something like Master Yi, or a top laner fighter that can be really impactful on like something like an Aatrox or a Camille or a Kled, or the new Aurelia can do really big wonders with a Black Shield on her to have it so she doesn't get her combos interrupted. And it places a protective barrier around an allied champion, absorbing magical damage, and disables until penetrated or the shield dissipates. So this is it has a fairly long cooldown, so you're probably going to get one, maybe two if it's a long team fight off. So really pick your points. It is really important to be using it on the engages when your allies are about to get CC'd. And onto Morgana's ult, Soul Shackles. She latches chains of energy onto nearby enemy champions, dealing initial damage to them and slowing their movement speed, and then echoing the pain a few seconds later and stunning them if they remain close to Morgana. Now this is a really just an invaluable tool in team fighting that needs to be used just at the precise moment when they're trying to engage on you or you are looking for your engage. So this is kind of your all-in button. This is your let's start a fight. This is your Thresh going in with a land or going in with his hook, or a Blitz hooking someone in. This is your go button, so it should be treated as such. It is also really good peeling, but if you have a Zhonya's available to yourself or a stopwatch, it can be a super impactful engage for your team. So really look out for using this ability, as it is a pretty long cooldown. So just make sure. Well, pretty much with all of it, outside of the W with Morgana's kit, they all have a relatively long cooldown for their respective slots. So you should really be trying to figure out the best timings to be using these abilities if you want to climb with Morgana. Alright, and that will wrap up the skills for Morgana. Alright, and getting right into the runes for Morgana, definitely the most meta setup right now is Aerie, giving her that bit of flexibility in increasing her shield for her Black Shield or her damage on her QW combos. So it really gives you just another layer of choice when you're laning in what you want to do, if you want to be playing more offensive and playing more defensive, and it just kind of amplifies that choice. So it really is just... it's really the best pickup. There are a few other off-meta keystones we can go over a little bit later, but I really recommend, if you're struggling at all with Morgana, you're not using Summoner Aerie, to really give it a try. Alright, and on to the second row for Sorcery. There are two choices here. It's just kind of dependent on your play style. If you're a really big engager on Morgana, you'd love doing those flash R-ins with Zhonya's. Ultimate Hack can be definitely a better choice, but if you're more of a kind of sit back, try and land the QW combos and get picks, or if you're playing lane Morgana and you're just trying to push out waves, Monoflow Band can be also a really good choice, because your W can be pretty expensive just in terms of mana, so that can help you a bit with just sustaining that. And on to the next row. I believe that you can only choose between these two. The other one is not that good on Morgana. Transcendence, if your build isn't really CDR heavy, which usually you get a pretty good amount of CDR, so you don't really need it. If you're running a little bit more of an offensive build with not much CDR, it might be a good choice. But if you're running a CDR heavy build with support items, Celerity can be really good, because it can help you get into that position where you're going to get a higher percentage chance on your Qs. So it's a really good overall pickup, just helping you kite out, move around, because you are going to be pretty squishy, especially if you're a support. And it also can help you get in position for those ults and to chase people down when you have the first part of your shackles down. And the last row, the two choices, pretty basic choice throughout all champions, is Scorch is for early game presence, and for the Gathering Storm is for more of the late game. So just kind of, I would say, just keep a record of 10 games you play. Just get a notebook, write down how many minutes each game is going, or just look at your match history And if it's going over, your games are going over 30 minutes consistently, I would say Gathering Storm is a really good choice. But if you're able to snowball lanes and you're ending games pretty quickly, Scorch is a very good choice. All right, and on to the secondary trees we're looking at. Resolve can be very good if you're against a super tough lane that you usually struggle with or sometimes even get solo killed with. It can really add that little bit of defensiveness to just kind of null some of those advantages that your enemy team might get. The good choices in those rows, I think, are Bone Plating is really strong against people that are looking to combo you, such as Fizz, such as Talon, such as Katarina, where it doles the first 3 abilities and can be really effective in those all-in trades. The second row, I think Chrysalis is really good. It helps you in the early game when Morgana doesn't really have any of her, she doesn't have her Zhonya's yet, so she doesn't really have any defensive ability, and she's kind of more in the forefront in the early game as opposed to the super late game, and that a little bit of health can really help you kind of survive it. It is also extremely good against laners that are taking Ignite. Just that base flat HP can really counter some of those Ignite cheesers in the early game. Another choice you can make, it's definitely not as viable as the other two, but Revitalize can increase the shielding of your Black Shield and also increases the healing from your passive. So sometimes that can make a difference if you have high AP ratios for your shielding, and the percentages can really come into play, and it can really give your the heals that you're getting from your all-in trades in the mid lane just that little bit more of a boost. And next, my personal favorite for my secondary tree is definitely Inspiration with those rune setups, because the stopwatch is very good. Minion Dematerializer is pretty good as well. I don't know why I didn't put the icon, but I usually take the Insight and Perfect Timing with that setup. Just give me a little bit of CDR and to give me that reduced cooldown on the Zhonya, so it's always up for every team fight. Another good choice is also the Magical Footwear, just to help you chase down enemies a little bit more, ensuring that second part of your ult, or for just kind of chasing them down and getting in better position for your Q. Another decent secondary tree, I don't think it is meta, but if it suits your playstyle, it might work out. Zombie wards can help you out a lot with the vision around the map. If you're in a lower elo where people really never buy control wards and never really place their wards, it can be really effective. Ravenous Hunter can be okay on Morgana. It synergizes with just kind of her healing kit and her sustain she can do with her burst damage. And Cheap Shot, if you're just looking to get early kind of cheese kills, just it adds that little bit more amount of true damage on those early all-ins. Another few off-meta keystones that I've really tried and liked, one would be Predator, which is really good for roaming and ganks, just getting you in perfect position for your ult and perfect position for your Q. That would definitely be the most off meta. Some 2 more viable choices would be Unsealed Spellbook if you're looking to be more of that initiator and just having that flash up more often and being able to just set up your team a little bit more. And then also Arcane Comet is pretty good. It doesn't have the added bonus of increasing your shields, but it does have 100% hit rate when you land your Q, of course. So it is also a very good ability. And also, if you're just throwing out your W, the symbol for the Arcane Comet, that little circle reticule showing where it's going to land, is hidden by the Tormented Soil a bit, so you can keep that in mind. It is definitely a viable choice as well, but I would definitely recommend Aerie if you're struggling with your current setup with Morgana. All right, and that will wrap up the runes for Morgana. All right, and let's jump right into Morgana's items. Now, one of my favorite parts of her kit and just kind of her playstyle is she is so extremely flexible from the roles she plays. From the mid, she can play top. She even had her spotlight in jungle for a little bit when the sustain was really high on her passive. And also, of course, support. So that comes with a very flexible, just vast array of items that you can tailor to your play style. And I'm under the impression right now that you should never be just playing the same build over and over again. It really can you can evolve the build to what the opponent is doing. And let's just jump right into it. If you're playing lane Morgana, you want to have a good amount of damage, a good amount of burst. You're obviously not going to have as much as something like an Azir, a Karthus, or a Nivea, really high damage AP, but you are able to burst out squishies with QW after an item or two, and you can do a lot of damage. Morgana's strengths are, she is really strong in the early game when catch is just so much more impactful, and well, catch is pretty good throughout the game, but it is just so much more deadly, and you're able to burst people out a lot easier in that early game before they get defensive items. And I really find that Luden's mixed with her W, first of all, it just makes her clear very, very strong. And also what it does is it gives a little bit more burst to your QW combo, and it just gives her that more threat and that little bit more ability to snowball games, which is extremely important when you're a mid laner and you just want to carry. So there's a couple items I want to go over. Zhonya's is a must, I think. Unless you're just one of those Morganas that just sit all the way in the back and do nothing. If you want to be impactful, if you don't want to be a 50% player, I think the Zhonya's should be in your build at some point, just so you can do those flash in and get those 3 or 4 man ults. It's really important for Morgana, and that first line is just kind of the row, if you're playing lane Morgana, you should be sticking with. All right, and some of the support items with Morgana, there are... it is a really diverse choice. If you have an ADC that really thrives off of attack speed and on-hit damage, Ardent Sensor is okay. Even though you are only giving it to that one person, it is an alright choice. It isn't optimal. You aren't like a Karma that can just apply the Ardent to everyone on your team, but it is an okay choice. Of course, Locket is pretty good. Twin Shadows can really help if you're one of those Morgana players that struggle with landing your Q. Salvation is very good and impactful in team fights. Zeke's can also be a very good choice just to give you that little bit more of tankiness and to really help your ADC do a lot more damage. And it also slows opponents that are around you, increasing your chances to, first of all, land your Q, and also... it procs off using your ult, so it also helps you chase down people with your ult, just giving you that little bit more of a slow around you. Another good choice is the Shirelias. It can really increase your chances of landing your Q and ult as well. If you have a strong team comp that's something like an Olaf that's just trying to run at people, is Xin Zhao, a Tryndamere, pairs really well if you have a Sivir, and it's just one of those like team comps, like something like a Trundle, and they just want to run at people and kill them. That this can be a really good pick, and it is kind of new. Some people shy away from it, but definitely I would give it a try. If you're uncomfortable with it, either try it in normals, or if you're already snowballing in a game, just give it a try. It's a very cheap item. It gives great stats. It gives health, AP, and the on use and CDR. So it is a really good pickup for Morgana. Alright, and on to some situational items that I've used before that are pretty nice. If you're playing top lane Morgana, I really think Rod of Ages is kind of a must to be a little bit more of an AP bruiser, as opposed to just something that's just going to die the second that you don't have Zhonya's. It is a pretty good pickup. Also, some other good choices. Liandry's can be very good into really high team or tanky team comps, so it just makes your W pool that much more effective, just giving you that bit of burn on it and giving you more damage on it. It's a good pickup because it also gives you a little bit more defensiveness as well. And then some people take Rylai's on Morgana, can help you land the ult, and then you can also throw your W to apply the slow, and then into your Q can also be another good setup to land your Qs. Righteous Glory, another thing, if you're just looking to be a little bit more of a tanky AP bruiser. I used it a couple times when I was ahead. I don't think it's meta by any means, but it was a lot of fun chasing people down with my ult up and running them down with Righteous Glory. Another thing that's kind of fun, Spellbinder Orb. If you are snowballing really hard, it can be so impactful because you know when you're going to be doing a lot of damage. You aren't just auto-attacking with soldiers like on Azir. you can pop this right before you know you're going to hit someone with your combo, and it can be just the difference between bursting out and one-shotting a squishy, or them getting away with a little bit of HP and getting healed up, or going back to fountain and coming back. So you should really be trying to change up your builds every single game. I can't emphasize that enough, and really define what fits your play style. I've personally found a really offensive play style with maybe one or two utility items is the best for me. All right, and that will wrap up Morgana's items. All right, and let's go over some of the matchups that you're going to see on Morgana. So some of the matchups of note you're going to be seeing in the mid lane. First of all, ones that you are going to really exceed in, and Morgana has extremely high win rates in. First up is Rise, where she has a 55% win rate into. It's very obvious, in my opinion, when Rises are going to look for the root. So your Black Shield just does so much in this matchup, where you're able to negate a large part of his combo, and you're, most of the time, I'd say 50-50, you're able to get his CC spell immune just from your shield. And this is a very easy, just kind of farm matchup. You do have a lot of all-in pressure in the early levels, I'd say. Especially at level 6, when he doesn't really get any kind of power spike, but you get your ult that does so much damage, provides CC, gives you a big heal. Really look for that level 6 all-in, and also you can be looking for all-ins as well before that, but just do yourself a favor when you hit level 6. If you're at equal health, just look for that all-in on Horizon. You can really make some miracles happen in the mid lane. All right, and the next matchup, one of Morgana's highest win rates is she has a 59% win rate going into Talon mid lane, because she is just able to. It is so important to lock down those assassin archetypes, and he doesn't really have an ability outside of jumping over a wall to escape your Q, and it's pretty linear in his playstyle, where he wants to jump to and where he wants to go is kind of more up and down. Like, he's either running away from you and farming, or he is attacking you. So it's kind of, he's a pretty predictable champion, especially just to guarantee that every single one of your bindings land. Just wait for his Q animation to go off, where he kind of jumps at you and he makes a little bit of a weird sound, and just throw your Q straight at him and it will land every time. So just look for that. And also, Zhonya's is such a great item on Morgana, and it is just a perfect counter to what Talon is trying to do as a burst assassin. So if you are looking for a easy lane, and easy win in my opinion, just because you're going to be able to bring more damage from the mid lane, you're going to bring a lot more utility with your Black Shield and your CC. It is just a great pick. You just need to make sure to ping your teammates when he's roaming, because he can out roam you pretty hard. That's the only way that Talon is going to win the game. He's not going to win it through team fighting. He's going to win it through snowballing the sidelines. So you have to just stop that, and you'll be good to go. And the last for the good matchups for Morgana is Azir. Morgana has a really good a lane into him. She has a 56% win rate into Azir, and really counters what he's trying to do. It's really obvious when he's going in for the stream of shuffle to just save your Black Shield right for those animations, right before the soldiers are going to hit you, and just kind of walk and spam your emote or laugh when he is right about to scoop you away. And she does have a pretty good laning phase against him. She has kill pressure, of course, with landing the QW, able to set up ganks pretty well on against Azir, and can be a bit of a bully if you take Ignite as well, and you just get a couple of catches with your Q, can really silence his early game, and obviously can stop his Shurima Shuffle combo on your ADCs if they're really fed, and just kind of protecting your carries a lot more than he can protect his. All right, and some of the dreaded matchups for Morgana in the mid lane. You know, it's not first, but I'm going to start with this Fizz, because he is a son of a bitch. Because his troll pull, he can just wait until you Q to go immune and dodge out that ability, which is so much of your damage, so much of your utility, that he can really just wreak havoc on your back line if you're not able to land that binding. One thing I've found against Fizz is wait until he gets in his Q animation, and usually Fizzes don't look to E until like after their Q animation. This is the only tip I can give, because Fizz is just such a struggle for a champion matchup unless you're just going to defensive build in the mid lane and you're running exhaust and you're playing really far back. It can be a very troublesome lane. Another really low win rate mid laner that we play against is Corki with that 46.34% win rate. He's able to dodge out your slow moving Q with his Valkyrie. He outscales you by a lot because Corki does massive damage in the late game, and he's also unstoppable when he has his package up, so you're not able to throw your Q on to get him there either. And it can just be just a difficult matchup overall, just because he has very consistent damage, and that's one thing that Morgana severely lacks. So if you get all ins, just make sure that you're doing them at the appropriate ranges, because if you miss your Q and W, he can just chase you down with his Valkyrie and just destroy you, because you cannot trade autos with him whatsoever in the mid lane. All right, and going on to Anivia, very low win rate against Anivia as well. She has, I would say, pretty close to the same amount of utility between her wall and her stun. She scales extremely well. It is a pretty tough matchup. You are able to get picks on her because she is extremely slow moving, so look to take advantage of that. You are able to black shield her stun as well, but overall, it is kind of a ticking time bomb where she is just going to outscale you, so you need to be careful of this matchup when you're looking into it. All right, and some support matchups of note. She is generally very good into tanky CC matchups, just because of your spell shield, and there isn't usually too much magic damage to break your black shield in that bot lane. So always look to pick Morgana into things like Braum, things like Alistar, things like Thresh, and things like Leona, where you can really stop what they're trying to do in the team fights with your abilities. And it makes you feel like you're the one that's changing the course of the team fights. You're the one that's deciding, was that 6-item ADC black shielded when the Alistar comboed in? If he was, you might have won the team fight for your team. If he wasn't, you might have screwed everything up for your team. So this is a really, these are fun matchups in my opinion. It gives you the high highs and the low lows where your teammate might spam ping you saying, where's my black shield? But it really does feel good when you stop their all-in combos with your black shield. And some support matchups that Morgana struggles with a little bit are the Enchanter matchups, usually around a 45-46% win rate against those things. Just like Sona, things like Janna and Lulu that are sitting back, they're going to be very hard to hit with your Q if they're just staying at long ranges. They're able to provide as much utility generally as you, and they scale very well because they're able to apply their heals or their shields to multiple people, or they're more impactful, like Lulu's shields are more impactful than Morgana's shields late game. So you just need to be careful running into those. You need to play your champion a lot more like a pick champion than an enchanter champion. And another kind of archetype that she does seem to struggle against are the mages like Zyra and Brand. I personally don't really struggle with these, but the win rate is telling with a 45% win rate. You are able to stop a bit of their combo with your black shield, but they are able to have a little bit more consistent damage and more damage than you in that support role, and it can really snowball the lanes against you if you aren't careful, because you are very squishy. All right, and that will wrap up the matchups for Morgana.